Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Maverick Musings podcast with me, Rick. And we're now on episode 7, and this episode will probably be one of, or if not the toughest and most difficult one that I've talked about. So much so that I haven't even thought of a silly episode name or the play on words title. And as you can probably tell by my introduction this week, it's a bit more serious. And that's because this week is the mental health episode. Now, I'm going to let you know from the start that this episode there will be events spoken about that may be uncomfortable or triggering for people, as I'm going to be talking about events that have actually happened to me throughout my life and my mental health journey. And also I'm going to be using some more appropriate wording or friendlier wording for certain acts that may pop up. And at the end of this episode I'll also give some information for some services to help anyone who may need it who is listening to this. So I think the best way to start this episode is just to try and find the right way to dive in. So regarding my mental health experience in the 33 years of my life, for as long as I can remember, I have been unhappy with myself, never really seen myself as good enough, worth anyone's time, and for most of it, not wanting to be here, and feeling that I am a burden to people and that they would be better off without me being here, or they'd rather someone else was there instead of me. And this does go back to my childhood. Some of my earliest memories, I was in counselling from the age of 5, and it's one of those things where most people, they remember playing with friends, they remember doing this, or they're doing now. It's like a trip to the park the first time they went here. Mine was being in the counsellor's room, talking to them at the age of 5 about why I'm unhappy, why do I not feel like children should feel. And I was always a loner, pretty much. I mean, I had friends, but I was always happier in my own company, and I always have been. It's just how I am. It's like I can be around people, I can be friendly with people, I can be in the company of my friends, but when it gets to a certain point, I need to be on my own. And at school, it was, especially in my young days, I didn't integrate well with others. It took me a long time with new people, shall we say. I mean, I had friends who I'd known my whole life, and it's one of those that even them, I didn't want to go to birthday parties. I didn't want to have my own birthday parties. I mean, I had a couple, but I didn't want them. I did my best to avoid going out as a kid, like playing out with my friends. or even if they came and knocked on the door for me, I didn't want to. It had to be when I felt like I could be around them. And I know now that part of that is because I felt judged in a way. I mean, I was an only child. I didn't know how to integrate with people, like kids my own age. I grew up in a household with my mum's friends, or my grandparents' friends, or my uncle's friends. I grew up around adults. I could interact with adults better than I could interact with kids my own age. And I found it difficult, and I used to get the piss taken out of me a lot, or I'd be called weird, or I'd basically get picked on and called all sorts of shit. And there was, through this counselling, it would work up to a certain point. I'd get to a certain point with the counsellor where the counsellor would say, okay, Rick, we've now finished our round of sessions. I don't think we need to do any more. I think you'll be okay. And I'd come out of them. I'd start feeling okay. Like, yeah, I can do this. I'm feeling a bit better. And 2 weeks later, I was back doing another round of sessions. And that went from the age of 5 to 16. So it was 11 years of counselling on and off. Like, it wasn't just like literally 2 weeks off. There was times where I left it a bit longer. But it was hard because as a kid you don't understand it. You just think you don't understand what was wrong. It was I just felt sad. I felt crap about the fact that my friends were, they were my friends, but I couldn't engage with them. I couldn't interact with them like other people could, or they had their own little inside jokes, or they had their own little things with other people, and I was sort of excluded from it. But it's how I saw the world. It's how I saw things like, well, clearly they're friends. I'm out of sight, out of mind. When I'm around them, that's when they're interested in talking to me and trying to involve me. But then when I'm not in their line of sight, doesn't matter, Rick who. And I think part of that is my own doing. But again, as a kid, you don't understand that. You just think it's how the world works. But again, it's from me wanting to be on my own, me being happier in my own company. But again, that's looking back at it now, I was really unhappy. And another part of it was growing up in what you wouldn't call the traditional family sense. Would be all my friends and all the kids who I went to school with had a mum and a dad. The mum and dad might not be together or living in the same house, but they had both parents. My dad died when I was 1. And so I grew up with my mum. Just my mum. Just me and her. I mean, her side of the family were really good with me when I was a child. But I'd just go home to my mum. And I didn't know any different. That's the cards life dealt me. That's what I grew up with. But it's when I started to go to school, as I mentioned in my last episode, when I moved primary schools, when kids who didn't know me and kids who didn't understand my situation, when they latched onto it, they took the piss out of it and would wind me up to the point where I'd react in one of two ways. I would either get upset or I would lash out. And more often than not, it was lashing out. And it's one of those where I didn't understand that it was different until the piss taking started. But kids being kids, they'll pick on any sign of thing that's different and try and take the piss out of it. But it's one of those where I was let down by the teaching staff, who, instead of seeing what was happening or wondering why, I just suddenly lashed out and jumped across the table and started smacking another kid's head into it or something like that. I got bollocked for doing it, but they couldn't understand. Nobody ever asked me why I did it. And again, I'm in my head as a kid trying to figure out a lot of things and finding out that because I have a different situation, that's worth ridiculing for, sending me further down a spiral. That the people who are supposed to be looking after me in my education terms really don't give a shit. They just see me as I've just done something for what perceived to be no reason, not hearing the fact that all the kids around me are laughing at me and saying that, haha, your dad's dead, and which has caused me to be angry and to act why I did. It's one of those where, as a 7 or 8 year old, you can't comprehend what it does to you. And it's because the more angry I got, the more sad I got, normal feelings, I didn't feel them in a way. It was kind of I kind of shut myself off a lot from a lot of things. I isolated myself a lot more. I used to joke with my mum, the only reason I didn't go out to play with my friends was because the one punishment she could give me for that would be grounding me. I took it off her because I didn't go out, so her punishment used to be to kick me out of the house to go and play. But it was more that I didn't want to be around people. I started to dislike other people because of how they treated me, and I couldn't understand, even with the counsellors, who again didn't really dig in too deep as to why I kept having to come back and why why it didn't seem to be doing anything. The techniques they were trying to get me to do, the breathing techniques, the try and focus on something good, something positive. And in my life, there was, at the time, it was hard to see the positive when it's hard to see the clear water when you're wading through a lake of shit. And it got to the point where I started, in order to feel something, which I found by accident when I was making an Airfix model, but I was doing it in the middle of the night on a school night because I didn't really sleep. If I went to sleep, I could sleep all night, but sometimes I'd be up past my bedtime, and I was using my penknife to cut the pieces, moved too quickly, and the penknife went into my thumb, about an inch deep into it, which I can still see the scar next to my nail. And I felt something. Now, I'm not proud of this, but it gave me, in my head anyway, it sort of gave me a released feeling. It gave me I did it. Wasn't on purpose that I did it, but I felt something instead of trying to dull everything. But yeah, I felt pain. I felt the trickling of the blood coming out of my thumb. But it was a weird satisfaction, like a relief. Is the weirdest but only way I can describe it. And so whenever I felt down, or whenever I got angry, or I then would do that self-harm to myself, to my arms, my chest, and it would, at most, for about 5 years, was the only time I really felt anything that I could say was a genuine feeling that I didn't have to pretend to do. And I mean, I bear the scars for the rest of my life, and looking back on them now, I should have gone and shown someone. I should have gone to a doctor and said, look, this is what I'm doing, but I covered them up, which you would do. But looking back on them now, I see them as a reminder of how bad it can get for me and what not to do again. And it's even more upsetting in a way now, because I look back and think, knowing what I know now, it's magic having 20/20 hindsight, but knowing what I know now, I should have gone to someone. I should have told someone this is what I'm doing, and they could have helped. But now my kids are at an age where they notice them and they ask questions, and I don't know how to answer them properly, because how can you tell a 4 and a 3-year-old, oh yeah, daddy took a knife or a pair of scissors or a razor blade and decided to just go to town on himself? So I just say, oh, it's just daddy did something silly, and that's what happened, and then that seems to be good enough for them. But it's going to get to the point where I know they're going to ask me, and I'll have to be honest, but I'll have to be honest at the right time for them, and I don't know if I'll be prepared for their reaction to it. But as well as the counselling that I was doing for years, I also did CBT, so the cognitive behavioural therapy. I went to drop-in centres when I couldn't get a counselling appointment. I had anger management for a while, because when I was going into my teenage years, my hormones, your body changes, your hormones go wild, and it wasn't a good time, because everything was just going off at once, and it was weird, because having been the only child, and I was the only child in my immediate family on my mum's side, and then my uncle had his son, and I instantly got pigeonholed as being jealous from day one of my new cousin being born, and I wasn't. It was new for me. I was 12. I was used to having my grandparents to myself, my uncle to myself. It was they all expected me just to accept it. But because they had siblings, I never had, so I didn't know what to do, how to process everything going on, and with everything that was still going on with me and my mental health side, what they perceived as jealousy or the fact that I didn't like my new cousin wasn't the truth. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't want to hold him because he was tiny. I've never held the baby before. I didn't know how you held them. I was scared of dropping him or hurting him. But when my mum took me to go and see him in the hospital, not long after he was born, the first thing I did was I sat on my grandma's knee. And everyone took that to mean I was jealous. I wasn't, but I was instantly pigeonholed. It was a case of, from my perspective, it was, what do I do? Why is nobody telling me how I should do things? Why is everyone telling me I'm jealous when I'm not jealous? Why is everyone talking about me and not to me? And it was a thing that lasted a long time with my mum's side of the family, because I was still learning. I was still this, and I used to have, when I was a bit younger, my earrings, I had loop ones, but they were a bit bigger because I was smaller than I am now. And it was one of the few times I was holding my cousin and he grabbed it. And what babies do, as soon as they grab hold of something, they pull. And it was a case of I was like, get him off my ear because he's going to rip it out. And everyone thought it was funny because they were thinking I was telling the baby to get off, and I was told babies don't understand what he won't understand what you're saying. He's only a baby, and I'm there at 12 years old saying I'm not talking to him, I'm talking to you. And that's when they realised that they weren't really paying attention to what I was saying. And since my cousin was born, the dynamic had changed, which you would expect as a new baby. People's attention was on the baby. But I wasn't expecting me to be cut out completely. It was very much a case of, it felt to me anyway, we've had 12 years of Rick, now there's a new kid on the block, there's a new baby in the family. Rick will be fine. He's 12, you can get over it. And it got to the point that in order to have me go round to my grandparents' house, they thought they needed to buy me to get there by getting a computer, which is something we didn't have at the time at my house. It was still one of those things where not everyone had a computer back in them days. But they dangled that carrot in front of me saying, we've got this computer, you can come round, use it, you can do schoolwork on it, anything like that. And they felt they had to buy me or dangle that carrot for me to come round, and they didn't. They just needed to tell me that I could come round. And that's how I felt something changed within my own family. Because it was very much I had to figure it out on my own. If anything was for me to be involved in anything, it had to be dangled in front of me, or it's like it had to be a case of, oh right, oh yeah, there's Rick as well. And that wasn't great. And it's one of those. I I don't know how to explain it. I mean, it probably sounds silly because I'm a grown-ass man talking about being a 12-year-old kid that a new baby was born and everyone forgot about me, but they did for a while. And from being the only child around and having everyone's attention, being going around for sleepovers at my uncle's all the time, who got me into TV shows I shouldn't have been watching for like the age of 5 or 6. I was watching Boss and Red Dwarf, Men Behaving Badly, them sort of programs. A small child shouldn't be watching, but I watched it with him. That was like our thing. I'd go around to his maybe once a week or once a fortnight, have a sleepover at his, and we'd do stuff. I used to go out on deliveries with him when I was on school holidays, when he worked as a delivery driver for a local printing company. I'd be at my grandparents all the time, go on holiday with them a couple of times a year, that sort of thing. When you've been used to that, to going through a change that they expect you to understand straight away when you have had no idea about it because you had a different life to them. They had siblings, they had big families. I didn't have that, and I struggled at first because I was trying to figure it out while also having no one talk to me about it or to explain to me why I can't come round, or why I can't do this, or why am I not being spoken to for a couple of weeks? Why am I being ignored? Or why am I perceiving that I'm being ignored when just because this is I'm still there too? And it's one of those where that sent me down even more in a bit of a spiral, to the point where I felt like from my teenage years, I mean, I know a lot of teenagers think it's me against the world, but it wasn't me against the world. It was fuck the world, I'll just shut the door on you, for me. And again, linking to a previous episode, or the last episode, college for me was my great thing. I had two good years where I learnt by doing. I was having fun. I was doing something I was passionate about, and it ended on a bit of a sour note for me, anyway. After 2 years of hard work and getting my triple distinction in the course, we had this final project where we did a location drama. I think it was a 15-minute location drama project where we'd go out, film, and it'd be shown to friends and families on an end of course show night, which everyone did. And I mean, I was proud of what I did. I was talking it up to my family, like, oh yeah, you all get to come and see what I've done. My portfolio was there for them to see, because I'd never shown them anything, because, well, they never asked, but I was always busy with it, so I didn't really have time to show them, unless they'd ask, which they never did. So it was like, you get to see 2 years of learning and stuff, you get to see it and come show it and this, that and the other. And I was like, oh yeah, great. And my mum, my uncle, my grandparents said they'd come, and I was like, yep, great. Feeling really proud of myself that I'd done two great years at college, and they were going to see the fruits of that 2 years in this last project, and get to see my portfolio and things I'd picked out from the years of being laid out on tables so they can go and see. And it was getting closer to show time. People's parents were turning up to go into the viewing the viewing theatre in the college, or the lecture theatre in the college, and my lot hadn't turned up. They hadn't turned up yet, and more and more people were going in to sit down, and I happened to be the projectionist for the night. I offered to do it because I didn't want to sit with everyone. I wanted something to keep me busy, because that's just how I am. I need something to occupy my mind most of the time. It could just be having something on the background noise. But yeah, they still hadn't arrived yet, and the show was getting ready to start. So I rang up my mum, and was like, "Where are you? We haven't set off yet." My heart sank, and I got angry. Didn't shout, scream, kick things over, because I was in my college building. There was parents and friends and family of people on my course, and I said on the phone, "Well, don't fucking bother," and hung up. And I got a phone call not long after, saying, "What's up? We're on our way." I'm like, "Well, you're gonna miss it. You're gonna miss my show, my part of the show." And turns out, I said, "There's no point you coming." So I was in the projection room anyway, and didn't realise that they came in, and they arrived, I think, 2 minutes before my group's part of the show was on. So my little group who did our location drama, and played, and we had end of year awards, which our tutor gave the awards out for each person, group by group. So we had to go on the stage after it, and I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go down because I didn't know. I thought my family hadn't turned up, and I was in the booth, and they came and got me, and someone from the course came and got me, and I went down. And as soon as I went on the stage, I heard my lot cheer, and I had my head down, and I didn't look up. I was angry. I was upset. I was angry, and because I felt that it wasn't important to them. Something that was really important to me, that I wanted to share with them, it didn't feel important to them, and so I was angry. I was upset. I ended up getting 2 awards at college, which was, I can't remember what the first one was, but the second one was best hair in my year, and that was because I had a Mohican that used to change colours every so often for 2 years, and the irony was that the day before the show I shaved it off because it was getting to quite a hot summer, and it was quite long, and it was quite thick, and I just shaved it off. So I still think that most of the people who saw me get that award think I was awarded it for irony, because I had no hair. But then it came to the end of the show where you could talk to everyone out the front and in the room, and say how the show went and stuff. And my mum said it wasn't her fault. She was trying to get them to move, and she was trying to tell them that they needed to be there. And my grandfather came up to me, and he said, "Oh, we thought it was just like a parents' evening. We didn't realise it was this. We thought it was just going to be just come whenever you want to have a look at it." And I still remember, I was stood with my portfolio and my things. I zipped it up, I picked it up, handed it to my mum, and turned around to him, my grandmother, and my uncle, and I said, if that was the case, why the fuck would I have invited you here? I said, why would I have gone on about this for 3 weeks to tell you that this is what's happening, this is what I've come to show you, this is 2 years of work that I'm going to show you, that everything I've learned is for this. Why the fuck would I have made such a fuss about it if it was just something where you could turn up whenever you want and just look at some pieces of paper? I said, you have no idea how upset I am with you, how angry I am with you. And the fact that you fucking ignored me when you hadn't even set off yet, and I told Mum to tell you not to bother, and you still turned up and you trying to act like you're dead proud of me and stuff. I said, fuck you. And that made me feel completely worthless, because it was something I was proud of, one of the few things I'd been good at. Maybe one of the only things I've been good at least up to that point. And it was dismissed as something that, because they hadn't paid attention to what I'd said, how I'd told them that I wanted them to be there, because I wanted them to see what I was proud of doing, something I'd done. They just thought, it was like an open evening or a parents' evening, and everything I'd done felt diminished within 5 seconds. And I said to my mum, I said to Mum, can we just go home? And Mum said, you're not staying to have a drink with everyone, like with your friends? And so I said no. And she told me that I should do, and so I did. So I got a bit pissed and came home a few hours later. And then came uni. I think it was also part of the reason why I chose university so far away. It's because I wanted to be away from everybody. I didn't want to be near them. I wanted to be my own person and show them that I could do something. It was to be in spite of the shit I got given for something I was proud of. It's like, you know what, fuck you, I'm going to move so far away from you that you can't fucking come down and see me whenever you want. And when I moved down, I didn't expect to be just disowned by everyone, by having nobody talk to me. In terms of my friends, it was a case of 1 minute I was here, the next minute I was there, and I was away. Don't have to bother with them anymore. I am usually the person who messages someone first. Always have been. It's the only person I think who messages me first is either my mum or Hannah. And that's how it's always been for me. It's a case of, I could not hear from someone for 3 months. I'll send them a message, they reply straight away, and that feels shit. Because it's a case of, I feel like I'm only kind of important for that second. I'm only worth the time for that second for most people anyway. One of whom was who I considered my best friend at the time. I said to them, you want to come down here, get on the train. If you book it early enough, you can get it for really cheap. You can stay over in my halls of residence with me. We can found some places that I know you like, because we were like rock lads. We like rock music, both had my weekends, weren't really club type lads. It's like, found a couple of cool bars that you'd like. And his reaction was, well, can you just not come up here? I can't. He's like, it's too expensive for me to come down. Can you not come up here? And I'm like, well, what the fuck? It's the same price for me coming up there as it is to you coming down here. So, but down here, we can have a laugh, we can do what we want. When if I come up there, can't, because it's a small town and there's not a lot of places to go. And stupidly, I fucking went because I missed my friend. And it wasn't a great time, because I came back for a visit and he didn't meet me at the train station like he said he was going to meet me. I had to meet him elsewhere. And when I left, I had to get an earlier train in order to get back to my university in a decent enough time, because it was a long train journey. And he couldn't even be asked to get out of bed to say goodbye to me. And I felt like we'd known each other for a long time, and I felt that this is how you value our friendship. You barely spoken to me since I moved away. I invited you to come down to mine. I ended up having to pay the same price to go to yours because you said you couldn't afford it, yet you paid however much for concert tickets or festival tickets. Yeah, you couldn't afford 26 quid to come see me come down on the train to see me, where you wouldn't have to pay any money for like food or somewhere to stay because I had it all in. And you couldn't even be asked to get out of bed to say bye to me. And that opened my eyes to how little I felt I meant to everyone, even more so than how I used to feel. And then as well, being the fact that I was away from home, and I was so far away from home because I didn't choose to go for the right reasons. I just chose to just fuck off and get away as far away as I could. And it's when I couldn't get a job down there because, ironically, in a city that had 2 universities, I was told by most places there that they weren't hiring students. And I was like, but you have 2 big universities here. You have thousands of students living in the city and you're not employing students. No, we're not. Right, okay then. And all the places that were employing students had already filled up all the vacancies that they had. And living down south in the south of England is very fucking expensive. And if you've got no money, you're fucked. And that came to be the case. My mum moved up to Scotland. I went to hers for Christmas after saying I wasn't going because I couldn't afford to come up. I don't drive, so I didn't have a license. So if I did have a license, I would have probably driven up. But because I don't, and so one of the Christmas presents from a friend of our family, they came, picked me up, dropped me off my mum's, and then picked me up from my mum's a few days later to drive me back to university. And it was, I got there and I was miserable because I was hating life at university. But it was also, I had a pretty bad period where I did try to unalive myself when I was there, and it obviously didn't work, and I felt like I was a failure, not just with how uni was going, how being away from everybody was going, that I couldn't even succeed in that. That's how much of a failure I felt I was. I couldn't even succeed in taking myself out of the equation. But yeah, I went to my mum's for Christmas, and after being asked a few times how uni was going, I think I gave a one-word answer and said, "All right." and that was the only time I spoke about it. And I think they knew that I was checked out. And then when I eventually left uni, which was not long after, I moved back to my hometown because my mum and her new partner basically said to me that they live in a very small village. There wouldn't be much opportunity for me where they are, or were at the time, and I'd have better opportunities like finding work, being around my friends. If I went back to my hometown, which I did with my tail between my legs, feeling like a failure because I lasted only a few months in university before quitting, and coming to the conclusion that most of my friends weren't really friends, if that makes sense, in terms of nobody fucking bothered with me, nobody talked to me, nobody messaged me. I was away, I was out of sight, I was out of mind, and then I came back 6 months later, and it was still the same. I was only spoken to in passing or when I was around them. But I then moved in with my grandparents, and that was interesting, because I was an adult now, supposedly. At 19, I had no money, I had no job, left university, and I was told I needed to find a job to pay my way in the house, which I understood, and I tried my fucking hardest for the best part of a year to get a job. But because they asked why I had a gap in employment, I said it's because I was at university, but I've now left. They asked for documentation that I had left, so a letter from the university saying such Rick has left such and such a university on this date. The university refused to give me one, and because of that I couldn't claim unemployment, I couldn't claim job seekers allowance. I could still sign on, but I wouldn't get the money for it, and they wouldn't pay it back. Like, they wouldn't back pay it. And the longer this went on, I then kept getting lovely chats with my grandmother on how much I owed her, how much I'm costing them, and things like that, but constantly reminded and being told that, you know, they helped bail me out of university. They helped pay for the fees for the halls for the rest of the year that I'm not living in, and this, that, and the other, which turned out to be untrue. I later found out, but that's another story. But I was constantly nagged that I owed them money, but I was only told on my own when my grandfather wasn't in the house. She didn't dare say it if he was there. She was clever in that regard, where she would do when no one's around, or she'd say stuff quietly to get a reaction out of you, and you'd be the one that people would look at because you're reacting to something they hadn't seen or heard, and then she could play the victim of, I haven't said anything, I haven't done anything. And I'd had enough. They accused me of just staying there all the time, and they didn't realise that the way applying for jobs was changing. It was more online. It was starting to become that way. It was moving into the online system instead of just going to a shop asking for an application form and filling it out and handing it back, which I'd started my working career in. It was, you go in, ask if there's a job going, yeah, here's an application form. Now it was moving to doing online, apply with your CV online, go through the website or go through the job centre, and they couldn't understand it. So I had to literally go out. They had their neighbours spy on me as well, which was really more annoying. Because they'd be like, "Oh, have you been out today? We're looking for jobs." I'm like, "Yeah, I have." "Oh, well, such said you'd only been out an hour." I'm like, "Yeah. How many times can I go in the same shops in the same town? I can't go out every single day to the same shops in the same town. There's only so many places, so many jobs available." And they weren't understanding. You just sat at your computer. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm actually applying for jobs. I'm not just sitting on my arse doing nothing." But they couldn't get their head around that. And so I started to spiral more and more. I was smoking a lot at the time as well, but bizarrely I hid that, managed to keep that hidden from everyone in my family till the age of 24. I used to smoke on my grandparents' garage roof because I could climb out of the bedroom window and sit on it. So God knows how many cigarette ends are on the top of their roof now, but who cares, not my fucking house. But I was having a really, really bad day. I was constantly being, my head was constantly being pecked at by my grandmother. I constantly felt like every move I made was being watched by everyone on the street because they'd obviously been told to make sure I'm doing something. Despite the fact I was tidying the house, I was doing the garden, I was doing all that fucking housework basically. Keeping the house clean and tidy, but because they didn't see me do it, I wasn't fucking doing anything. And I used to make my grandfather his fucking lunch when he did split shifts. I'd make it in front of him. But, I mean, what fucking 19, 20-year-old lad fucking does that? For the grandparents. Fucking constantly cleans their house, fucking sorts their garden out without being fucking asked to or told to. And makes their fucking dinner when they come home. But constantly being told you do fuck all. You just waste electric, you waste gas, you waste fucking this, that and the other. And so I was having a really bad time. I was getting no help from anywhere. Job wise, money wise. Constantly being shit ripped out of me. Well, given to me. And it got to the point where I was having a chat with a friend on, still in the MSN days. This is how old I am. And we were doing a webcam chat and something happened and something was said and I lost it. I'd had enough, I'd really had enough of everything. And I came off MSN and I ripped my screen off my laptop. And I put it through the hard drive of the laptop. The keyboard and the hard drive, I just literally within one motion just ripped it off and put it straight through the middle of the other half. And the next thing I hear is footsteps run up the stairs. And it's my grandfather who comes in my room, sees me red with anger. My eyes were red, my face was red, I was fucking angry. And he, instead of asking me what was wrong, he looked what I'd done and said, "You need to be on fucking pills or something." And he was lucky that I didn't jump at him. I didn't launch at him because I was in that mood where I wasn't going to think what I did. It was just going to be, that's what happened. But hearing what he said, it knocked me back. That instead of asking me what was wrong, he'd just seen what had happened. Uncharacteristic for me at that time. I mean, I know as a kid I was a bit of an angry kid and stuff, but he didn't even take the time to ask me if I was okay. Didn't see that this was something major that I'd done that's not a normal thing to do, and he just told me I needed to be on fucking pills, and I told him to fuck off. And the first thing I did when he shut the door was I grabbed a pair of scissors and went at my arm again, and I went fairly deep into my arm, I rang a friend, a family friend who used to live next door to us, if they could come and get me. And I packed my bags and I fucking walked out. And I still had my key. A couple of day later, I went and got the rest of my stuff. And this was still. I went down to the end of the road. I had a cigarette on the roundabout, round at the end of their road. It's a small, like, cul-de-sac roundabout, but crying my eyes out, bleeding everywhere. And again, hid what I'd done with the sleeve of a hoodie, and waited for my friends to come get me. They took me back to the house, which was admittedly not very far. I got the rest of my stuff and I stayed with them for a bit, and the only thing that my grandparents could say was, we didn't force him out. We didn't kick him out. Not make sure he's okay. We'll see you soon. You don't have to go. Not trying to stop me leave. We didn't kick him out. And that was pretty much the last time I spoke to them. Well, at least spoke to my grandmother anyway. That was the last time. And that was when I was 20. I'm 34 this year. And the last time I saw her was when I moved away, and then I moved away and I was away for a long time. And I moved back and I was walking down the street, and I didn't say anything. I just happened to look up and went, oh, look, there she is. Wonder what she'll do, wonder what she'll say. She looked up, saw it was me, and crossed the street to avoid me. I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't done anything wrong. But like that's another story for another time. I moved away and ended up living on my own after a few years. I lived with my mum, moved with some of my dad's side of the family. Then I got my own place, and again I had my own place, and the only people to visit me was my mum and her partner, or husband, then husband. Whenever they came down, they stayed at mine. And that was it. Apart from one of my mum's friends who occasionally came down to make sure I was alright, or who would help me go to get stuff like paint or stuff I'd need. They'd always ask if I was alright, if I needed anything, needed a lift here, needed a lift there. So that was pretty much the only people who came to my flat. And I couldn't afford to furnish it, so I had no carpet, I had no oven. I couldn't even afford curtains. Everything in that flat was given to me. I didn't have much, but it was mine. It was my own place, and I hated it. I hated it because I felt on my own, not through my own choice. As a kid, it was my choice. I didn't want to be how people. I had the choice of, I didn't want to go somewhere, so I would stay at home. This now felt like it was everyone's choice to avoid me. And from what I could tell, I hadn't done anything. I'd been cast out by a lot of people. And it's weird because a lot of the time I was the one person that was always there for people. Even if I didn't want to go and go out and do this or that, I was always there. Like, if someone was struggling, I was always there. I'm on the other end of the phone. Whatever time you let me know, and I'll talk to you. And that's what happened. Some people would ring me at 3 a.m, they'd be feeling down, and I'd be talking them out of it while feeling shit myself, but knowing it wasn't for me to then project my shit on them because they're phoning me with an issue. They're feeling upset, they're feeling down, they need someone to talk to, and that's what I do. But I didn't get the same back from them same people, and I lived on my own. I had no one to go to. In that sense, I wasn't in a relationship. I suck at relationships, or I did then anyway. I had no safe. My safe space was also my sort of prison. I used to joke at work because I used to just to get out of my own head. I'd throw myself into work, and I'd work stupid amount of hours a week. And people would say to me, "Oh, what are you up to tonight after your shift?" And I'm like, "I'm going home to see if I still live there," because I spent more time at work than I did at home. I slept and went to work. That was it. Come home from work, have dinner, go to sleep, wake up, have breakfast, get dressed, go to work. And that weighed on me a lot. And then again, took another attempt at unaliving myself through drink, and it again was unsuccessful, but I felt like I was at rock bottom, that no one would know that I'd gone. They'd notice that I didn't turn up for work, but it'd be a few days before people wondered where I was. And I tried to drink myself to death, basically, and I'd prepared myself for it. I was ready to go. And it's a weird feeling when you prepare yourself for it and it doesn't work. That you wake up and the disappointment, the anger, the upset. The weird thing is, you feel upset that you haven't. You feel upset that you've woken up. You feel angry that you've woken up. I felt cheated that I'd woken up. And instead of going to see help or get help about it, I went to work the next day, acting like everything was fine. I looked like shit. I looked like there was obviously something wrong with me. And people just asked if I'd been out the night before. Had I been on the sesh? And instead of going, no, something's wrong, I went, yeah, you know what I'm like. And I carried on. I was in no fit state to work. I'm surprised I made it to work. I'm surprised they allowed me to work. But if somebody had spent more than 5 seconds, they'd have seen through my bollocks, and they would have seen through my lies, my bullshit to them, and they would have sat me down and gone, what the fuck's going on with you? What's happened? And it's one of them where I still wonder why it didn't work. I was like, what could I have done? Why can't I seemingly win at one thing? And then a few years later, I move again, same job, just different store. And I then finally admit that I have a problem, that I need proper help. I was 22 at the time, and I was working for a supermarket who will remain nameless, but they wear green. And apparently they're saving you money every day, or whatever that, if that's still the bollocks tagline. And I was working on the fish counter. I was a fishmonger that had 1 day's training in how to fillet and skin fish. That was their extensive fishmonger training. And I was going through a bad patch again, and I was in the enviable position of I was working with ridiculously sharp knives that I could make sharper. And I knew that I needed help because whenever I was having to skin fish or fillet fish, while I'm doing it, my eyes are wandering. Instead of concentrating on what I'm doing, these ridiculously sharp knives, that I am looking at my fingers going, all it takes is one slip and I could cut my finger off. That I could do that easily, or I could just get the cleaver that I've got, I could cut my hand off. And it wasn't a case of, oh no, that could happen. I'm wanting it to happen. I'm telling myself in my own head, if you do this will happen and it'll be good. And so I went to see my GP, who instantly told me I had depression, gave me some tablets and signed me off from work. So I'm going to sign you off for a month. I was like, okay. Told work, handed my sick note in, and I said, I'm going to be at home, take some time, because I had worked pretty much every day, or as often as I could, most times 6 days a week, for 3 years at that point, and my body was burnt out. I remember the Christmas that I had my own flat, before I moved to the place I was at the time. My Christmas day was, I got home Christmas Eve, went to bed, woke up at 12 o'clock in the afternoon Christmas Day, had my Christmas dinner, which was whatever I had in at the time. Had that, maybe watched 1 hour of TV, and went back to sleep because I had to be at the store at 8 o'clock on Boxing Day morning. So that was my Christmas that year. I saw maybe 2 hours of it. Yeah, so I was signed off from work and I said, right, I just need time to recover. Hopefully I'll be back to work after this sick note. Yeah, no worries, right? You take the time you need. If you need us, give us a call. We'll let you concentrate on your recovery. I thought, oh great, that's what I needed to hear. They're taking this seriously. And oh no, I got fucking phone calls every other day asking how I was, in air quotes. Basically trying to fucking find out when I'm coming back to work, because they were always asking, how long have you got left in your sick note? Do you think you'll be back soon or anything like that? And I'm like, you started ringing me a day after I went off on sick leave for depression, and you're already asking me when I'm coming back to work. And then after that sick note ran out, I got another sick note because I was still feeling equally shit. I couldn't face going back there because all I could think of was, I'm going to go there, I'm going to harm myself with the equipment that they're providing me to do my job, and I'm going to do it probably where it gets too dangerous and I may end up hurting someone else in the process, and that's not what I wanted. So I had another month signed off and they were still ringing me, and then I had an occupational health appointment where I had to go to my place of work to have my occupational health appointment. So I had to go back to the people who had been ringing me every other fucking day for a month to have an occupational health appointment to see how I was doing. And the first thing I said to him was, what sort of power do you have? Because I've never done any of these. And the woman said she can advise them what to do to help me if I'm getting back to work. And I said, right, the first thing you do is to tell them to leave me the fuck alone. And she went, what do you mean? So I showed her my phone and my call log list and my incoming calls, and she was gobsmacked that they were ringing me constantly. And she then gave me a questionnaire to fill out about my mental health, and it had some of the most ridiculous fucking questions, and all got added up to a points system. And basically I said, yeah, I'm going to be off for another month. And then after 3 months off, I went back to work, and my first day, my supervisor, I heard him say quite loudly, oh, some of us had to work, we can't all just be off work for 3 months doing fuck all under the pretense of depression. I could have throttled him there and then. This was literally within my first half an hour back in work, and I'm having the piss taken out of me for being depressed. And I basically told him where he could go, what he could do with his fucking attitude. And I went to the store, who was in charge of the store that day, and I told him, said, you best tell him to sort his fucking attitude out, and oh, by the way, I'm fucking off home. And the best thing about that is I did go home, and I'm the one who got in trouble. I had a disciplinary and I got a written warning because my attitude on the shop floor wasn't good, and I used foul and abusive language. I told him to stick his job up his ass. He told me that I was faking depression to have 3 months off work. I'm the one who got bollocked. I'm the one who got disciplined. I got a written warning. He got nothing. And I laughed. I laughed in that disciplinary hearing because I knew the decision had already been made before I'd even walked through the door. I had to give my point of view, I had to give my version of events over, and I knew from who was giving me that disciplinary meeting that they weren't fucking listening to what I was saying. They'd already made their mind up because it was their mate who told me that I was faking depression. And that's pretty much been the course of my life, really, is whenever I feel like shit, someone will usually take the piss out of it. Or make it feel shit. Another time where my mental health took a massive hit was my diagnosis when I started having seizures. I was originally diagnosed as epileptic, and that was scary because I also found out that I had quite a large cyst in my brain, and my mum was there when I was told by this doctor, who was so fucking blasé about it. He just said, "Oh yeah, we've done your MRI." I was like, "All right, okay, yeah, you got a cyst in your brain." And then he just fucked off, and it was quite scary because my dad died of a brain tumour. I'd just been told I had something quite large in my brain, and what made it worse for my mum and for me as well is I was the same age as my dad when he died. I was 24, and I had an irrational fear of turning 24. I say irrational fears because that's the age my dad died, so I was scared of it. If I turned 24, that's when I was going to. But being told that there was something in your brain and your dad died of something that was in his brain that they couldn't operate on, I panicked. My mum panicked. My mum burst into tears straight away as soon as hearing it. I was heavily medicated at the time, so it didn't really sink in at first. And then my mum then told my dad's side of the family, who was still on speaking terms with, what had happened. And one of my aunties, my dad's sister, youngest sister, basically went around telling everyone that I was dying. And I wasn't. She basically heard what she wanted to hear, or she managed to find a way of spinning it to make people feel sorry for her. And I had to ring round other members of my family from my hospital bed while heavily medicated to tell them that I am not dying. I spent 3/4 of an hour with with my other auntie on my dad's side, who was in floods of tears for pretty much the whole call. And I'm there trying to calm her down and console her, saying I'm not dying. And the seizure thing is one of those where I'm fucking terrified all the time. Especially at the start, because it was new. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how the people would deal with it. I didn't know what was going to happen. And so I lived in fear of it at first. For the first probably year. I only left the house if I really needed to. I was living in a shared house at the time. And I basically left the house if I had to go shopping, if I had to pick up my medication. That was it. And I was on a lot of medication. I was on just under 6,000 milligrams a day of anti-epileptics, which turned out to be the wrong fucking medication for me to be on, and it fucked me up in so many ways. But that was the only time I left the house. I would work out the quickest way to get to my local shop to do a food shop, and how quickly I could get there and get back. And I hated leaving the house in case something happened. I was fearing leaving the house. I feared something happening to me and nobody knowing. I basically became a recluse in a way. Whereas I was even scared being at home. I was scared of doing anything because I didn't know what was going to happen. And then I basically, after that first year, just sort of accepted this was life and nothing's going to change really from it. So might as well at least attempt to try and live normally. But my mental health was still shot to bits because there was always that thing in the back of my head going, you know, it just takes one and you could do it in the middle of the road and the car won't stop and stuff like that. And I was pretty much left to it by my specialists and stuff. It was basically, this is what's wrong with you. Bye-bye. I felt let down by the NHS. I had maybe an MRI once a year when I was first diagnosed, to check on my cyst and to check my brainwaves and stuff and make sure everything was fine. The first one I had, I was in hospital, was very heavily medicated on morphine and tramadol. I was on that every hour. They gave me a fair whack of it every hour. So I was quite chilled, relaxed, going into this MRI machine. The second time I had a panic attack. It's the only time I've ever had a panic attack in my life. Because one thing I found out later on is when I got sent for an MRI at a private place for MRIs. The private sector and the NHS sectors, MRI machines, are totally different. The private sector, fucking massive. They are. You can go in and out, no problem. The NHS ones, my shoulders were pressed up against the sides and I could hear my skin squeaking up against the side of the machine, and I felt claustrophobic to the point that I had a panic attack, pressed the squeezy button to let them know to automatically stop the machine. They asked me what was wrong. This was the NHS ones, the NHS MRI. And they asked me what was wrong, and I told them I think I'm having a panic attack. I'm closed in. I'm struggling to breathe. And they said, "Well, if we take you out, we'll have to start it all over again." And basically, I just went, right, well, fuck what I feel, then just carry on. And then that was it. And then once I got out, they didn't even ask me if I was okay. And I ended up having to see my GP about my mental health getting worse because of my seizures and my attitude, and people's attitude to me with my seizures, and I was really struggling. And they said, right, what we're going to do is put you on CBT therapy. So yeah, great. Went to my first session, and the woman asked me if I ever tried to unalive myself, and I said, that was the first question to me. Not, this is what we're going to do, this is how this is going to go, we're going to talk. No, straight in, hi, I'm such and such, have you ever done this? I just went, yeah, I have, a few times. And she said, in quite a patronising tone, well, I'm really glad you haven't. And she lost me from there. Within 30 seconds of me meeting this woman, I was done. I was checked out, wasn't ready to listen to what she had to say. I had an hour session with her. I didn't listen for 59 minutes and 30 seconds of it because she hadn't tried to introduce herself to me properly. She hadn't done any like rapport building or anything. It was literally, hi, I'm such and such, have you done this? Yeah, I have, but I'm glad you haven't. It's like, fuck off, you don't even know me. You don't know what the fuck's going on with me. You don't know my situation. That's the first thing you fucking asked me. It's like, fuck off. Walked out. My mum took me to the session. She went, how'd it go? I said, put it this way, I'm not coming back. And then I didn't speak to anyone for a long time, mental health wise, until after I had kids. Because I thought I was going to be a shit dad. And I still think that at times. But I think every parent thinks that they're going to be a shit parent, or they are a shit parent. But for me, it was, I didn't really know what a dad did. Because I didn't have one. I mean, obviously I did, but I don't remember him. I have no memory of my father. Everything I know about my dad is either a picture, a memory told to me by other people, of their memory of him, or a lump of granite at a cemetery, and a 6-foot deep hole. That's it. That's all I know of my dad, is other people's recollections, memories and pictures, and this lump of stone. And so I didn't know what a dad did, what a dad should do, how a dad should act. Spoke to a GP who told me I should just go on a walk, do some mindfulness techniques, take up yoga. And I was like, what? So I need to talk to somebody. Oh, we need to try these things first. I'm like, I made the doctor's appointment for you, told me to just go for a fucking walk. How the fuck do you think I got here? And now it's at the point of self-referral now. And you've got to ring a service to try and get an appointment. However long it will fucking take you to get said appointment is judged by how severe they think your case is. And there was one point where me and Hannah had a bit of an argument. Can't remember what about, can't remember what was said. But I was smoking at the time. I went to the shop from our house, which was our local shop was half a mile from our house. So I walked down there to buy some cigarettes to just to get me out of the house, to diffuse the situation. I was going there, buying the cigarettes, coming home. In that walk and having that cigarette, I would have thought, right, okay, situation's calmed down a bit now, we can work on it. I got to the shop, I remember walking to the shop, I remember going in the shop, I remember getting my cigarettes. Next thing I know, I'm in the hospital A&E waiting room, walking through the door. I don't remember getting there. The hospital was a good 1.5 miles from the shop. I don't remember walking. I don't remember how I got there. I don't know how I got there. I assume I walked. Because I didn't have it. No money had come out of my bank to pay for a taxi or anything, or a cash withdrawal. But I don't know. Still don't know how I got there. As I say, I'm assuming I walked. And I went to the A&E reception desk and said I need to get myself sectioned under the Mental Health Act, please. And the woman was like, okay, we need to see a member of the mental health team to come and see you. So go through the triage and things like that. So yep, right, no problem. Went through triage. And they asked me why I felt I needed section. I said because I feel ridiculously shit. They asked me if I'd tried to unalive myself. I said, yeah, I did on the way. This, again, is just through just sheer not knowing, but sort, you know, when you like unconsciously knowing what you've done. Even like you zoned out, but you're still aware of what happened. I said, yeah, I tried to do it on the way here. And they asked me how, and I said I was walking up the road, and as soon as I saw a truck, I was going to stand in front of it. The truck or a bus had stood in front of it. And they said, what stopped you? No, they asked me why a truck or a bus, and I said because it would take them longer to stop. And they asked me what was it that stopped me from doing it, and I said because obviously there wasn't a bus or a truck that drove past. And it's one of those where I knew I needed a lot of help, because I had kids, I had people at home that depended on me, and without even realising it, I had basically tried to take myself away from them. And I didn't even ring Hannah to tell her where I was. I was in A&E for 6 hours. 5 of those hours I was waiting to see that mental health worker. I was there for 5 hours to see somebody who, from their mental health department, a mental health ward, to come down and see me. It took them 5 hours. I was sat there thinking, why didn't it work? Why couldn't one have just driven past? And then you start thinking that the little faces at home, and you feel shit because you try to take yourself away from them. And from Hannah as well, I felt shit. And I could have walked out and just gone and done it, and nobody would have known. No one would have known where I was. And not much, but the one time I went out of the building to have a cigarette was when the mental health woman turned up. And she came out to see if I was there. And if I wasn't there, she wouldn't have come and looked for me. And then I talked to her about how shit I was feeling and what was going on. And she said she'd send the crisis team out to come and see me. And basically my mum She said, "Had you told Hannah where you are?" And I said, "No." She went, "I think you better had." So I messaged her saying I'm at A&E. I didn't even ring her. I texted her or WhatsApped her and said I'm at A&E. And then my mum rang me saying, "What's going on?" My mum picked me up and I didn't want to talk about it. Went home, didn't want to talk about it. Because I felt shame. I couldn't look at my kids for a bit. I couldn't look, when they woke up in the morning, I couldn't look at them. Because I felt shame. And then the crisis team came to see me, and my daughter, who was, was she even 2 at the time? I think she might have not long turned 2. And she stood in between me and them. She stood in front of me. Every time they tried to talk, she talked over them or made noises over them. Because she didn't know who they were. She knew they were coming to see me. And it was her way of trying to protect me. Every time I tried to talk to them, she'd talk over me. Every time they tried to talk to me, she'd talk over them. And she wouldn't leave me alone. She would literally stand in front of me or sit on my knee and try and get in front of my face so I couldn't see them. And I felt sorry for them, these poor people that came to see if I was alright. And to recommend treatment, any treatment that I'd need to get. Basically they told me I needed to ring the services and wait for an appointment. That's all I could do. And I felt that was a big, massive fucking letdown. Because I tried medications over the years and it didn't work. It made me worse. I tried talking to counsellors, CBT therapists, anger management therapists. It didn't work. I know I needed something. I knew myself I needed something deeper, that probed deeper to try and help me. Try and understand why I'm feeling this way. And I'm not criticising them services that they provided. It's just it wasn't the right ones for me. They might have been right for someone else, but they weren't right for me to figure out why I felt like I felt. And there's times when I still feel shit now. And I could be walking down the street on my own. And this is another reason probably why I listen to music all the time when I'm outside, when I'm on my own, when I'm going somewhere. Is if you see old cartoons where there's a cartoon angel and cartoon devil on the shoulders of whoever it is. I have that in a sort of way, but I just hear the voice of the cartoon devil. I don't hear the cartoon angel. And it's just, occasionally it just goes, all it would take is you to just, walk in the road. Or it'd say like, do you know if you slipped, you could do this. Every so often it's like my brain is trying to tell me what to do. And I'm doing my best to ignore it now. I don't let it win. I try and drown it out. But it's still there. It'll always be there, I think, until I get the right help. And I feel let down by the health system, the National Health Service, a bit, because I was then offered CBT therapy again, and I turned it down. I said I turned it down initially, and they said, "Well, we really think it'll help you. You'll benefit from it." I said, "Have you not seen my records? I have been through it enough times to know it will not fucking work for me, and that I need something different." Well, we think this is the best course for you with what you've told us. I'm telling you, it's not. So you are not listening to me. You are telling me from what I've told you this, yeah, but look at my file. Look how many times I've been through CBT. If it worked, would I still be fucking feeling like this? And would I have gone this amount of times? Would I have gone through counselling through this amount of years? Would I have done this? Would I have done that? And I went and... Do you know anything about... this thing is... I had 3 appointments booked. The first appointment I missed because on the bus there I had to get off the bus because I was going to be sick. I ended up, ironically, stopping outside. The bus stopped outside a hospital, but not where I was going for this CBT therapy, because that was done elsewhere. I had to run into their toilets and throw up. And it was 5 minutes before my appointment was supposed to start, and I couldn't ring the building they were in directly. I had to ring the service helpline number to try and get through to them to leave them a message. As soon as I got off that phone to them to leave that message, my phone rang, and it was the woman who was asking where I was. And I told her, and I said I'm going home because I don't feel well. And she went, "Oh, is it just the anxiety of coming?" I said, "No, I just feel like crap." Said against my better judgment, I came not feeling well. So I barely slept because my kids have kept me up all night. Said I don't feel great. Food from the night before hadn't settled, and I just feel like crap. Went to appointment number 2, rescheduled first appointment, went through that, and I said to them, "Look, I suffer from seizures. There may be times where I might have one here, or there might be times that it will prevent me from attending appointments. But if that happens, that's okay, just let us know and we'll sort it out." I was like, "Yep, great." Appointment for after that, I had a seizure the night before. A couple of seizures the night before, and I left a message to say I wouldn't be attending because I'd had multiple seizures, and I don't think it'd be safe for me travelling on my own on the bus for an hour to get to this appointment. Yeah, no worries. If you want to make another one, ring us up, let us know. That was it. And then they booted me off the service. It was a case of, if you want another appointment. If they felt that was the right help for me, why would they not saying to me, "Right, we'll rearrange it"? So, it's up to you then. I was considered to be not committed to the therapy, which I'll admit I wasn't, because it was a thing I said I didn't want to do because I'd already done it. But I was still going to go to see if it would help, maybe this time. And maybe it was just the therapist that I saw at the time that weren't the right fit for me. But I rang them up, I say maybe 2-3 days after this, and they said, "Oh, sorry, no, you're off this. You've been taken off the system because you didn't respond. You didn't attend appointments." And I was like, "Yeah, that's because of my health conditions." "Oh, well, you need to ring up and get put back on the system." And I was like, fuck it. Done with trying to help, because I'd warned them. I'd informed them the appointment previous that something might prevent me from coming, and it's not my fault. And they use that as a way of, because I missed an appointment, they just like, "Right, yeah, you're not committed to doing it, so we're going to give it to somebody who will turn up." I was like, "Yep, fine, that's fine." But I think the unwillingness to listen to me from the NHS's standpoint, I mean, I know that they're understaffed, they're underfunded, they do work hard, and they are trying their best, but sometimes it just takes that extra 30 seconds to listen to someone to say the help you are trying to push on me is not the right help for me, because I know, because I've done it. And I honestly don't think it's going to get any better for me. But I'm trying myself to work on my own mental health and not have as many bad days as I had in the past. And luckily, for me at least, things aren't as bad as they used to be, and I'm not harming myself anymore, and I do see a reason, although I get grumpy that I do wake up, but that's just because I'm tired. But I do see a reason to get up in the morning now, or well, whenever it is I wake up. But I do see a reason to do it now, and it's still hard. It's still an ongoing battle every day, but it's more internal. It's a battle against myself, and it's one I have to keep fighting and finding new ways of trying to win. But hopefully I can get there, and hopefully it won't affect my life going forward too much more. But now this is coming to the end of the episode this week, and just want to thank you for listening to me talking about something that's of quite a heavy subject, but also through my personal experience and personal experiences here. And I just apologise that it's been a ridiculously long episode. But I appreciate that if you have listened to it all the way through, or just listened to any part of it, I'm very thankful that you've taken the time to give me that time. But as promised earlier in the episode, which seems like forever ago now, there are some services that you can use if you are struggling with your mental health. There's of course the Samaritans, who are available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and you can contact them on 116 123, which is free from any phone, or you can go on to their website, which is thesamaritans.org. You can also contact Sane Line from in the UK, which is on 0300 304 7000, and they are available every day between the hours of 4:30pm to 10pm. And if you're a student and you need to talk at night, there is Nightline, which if you go to nightline.ac.uk, you can see if your university has a Nightline number specifically for your university where you can ring to get any assistance. And also, if you feel that you need to go and see somebody about your mental health, please go to your doctor, your GP. You can even go into an A&E and say you need to speak to someone about your mental health, or you can go on the NHS website to do a mental health symptoms check, where you can start the thing online, or you can ring 111 and go through that service, and it will give you the options online to fill out a form, an online questionnaire to determine what service would be best for you and what to do next. So once again, thank you very much for listening to this episode, and please like, share and subscribe to the podcast, and leave a comment down below if you feel you would like to. And as always, I will see you. Oh, actually no, I won't see you next week, because I am on holiday next week. So I'm taking some well-earned family time for a week away, so it will be in 2 weeks. On Monday I will see you next.